All right, so welcome to meeting three of Introduction to Middle School Biology. Today's main topic is going to be cell organelles. Last class we went over like what it takes to be a cell, um, a few main parts of the cell, but we're going to like dive deep into like organelle functions and how they support the cell. So here we go. First thing, functions of organelles. Second, we're actually going to be looking at some organelle pictures under a microscope, which should be really interesting. Lastly, we're looking at the difference of organelles in different cells. So basically, like there's different types of cells in our body and how they get those different functions and like where they come from. So functions of organelles. So first of all, probably the most important organelle that you would need to know is the nucleus. So this is like the control center of the cell. So at the middle of the cell, there's just this like big brown organelle called the nucleus. So this stores all of your DNA, which is like the entire code for like what makes you you. So all your traits, um, like physical traits like eye color, hair color, stuff like that, it's in your DNA, and all of your DNA is stored in the nucleus. Um, there's also a different type called RNA, which is useful for like different proteins made in your body to help you survive. Processes like mRNA transcription, which is just like a fancy word for a little process that happens to duplicate proteins in your body if your body needs more proteins. And proteins not like the like food protein, like proteins like the one that like your body uses to carry out functions and like carry out specialized functions. So since all your DNA is stored in the nucleus, you have a lot of DNA because you have a lot of different traits going on in your body. So this DNA is stored in the form of chromosomes. Every human has 23 pairs of chromosomes. Um, and chromosomes are these kind of like X-like structures, which have your DNA like tightly wrapped around histones, which is a type of proteins. So histones, like think of it as like like the DNA is like a thread wrapping around this like little like ball of like protein, just like wrapping around really tightly. So all of your DNA is wrapped around 23 pairs of these X's. So the chromosomes are responsible for gene regulation, protein synthesis, like making more proteins for your body, and cellular respiration, which is basically your body's way of making energy from the food you eat. Chromosomes allow accurate copying of DNA during cell division. So every single cell that you have in your body has 23 pairs of these chromosomes. Um, so when your body needs to grow, it obviously needs more cells to make up for like for the growth, right? So when you have more cells in your body, every cell is gonna have those 23 pairs of chromosomes. So like dividing, like having more cells goes through a process of cell division called mitosis. We'll be covering this like later on, but since you have more cells, you will have these like 23 pairs of chromosomes in every single individual cells. Next one is ribosomes. So we're not going to be going over this like entire picture here, but ribosomes are like, think of it as like the chef of the cell. So ribosomes like cook up these proteins after they get the instructions from the DNA. So think of the DNA as like the instruction manual for your body needs to make this, and your ribosome makes it for you. Your ribosome makes like proteins. Like you can see in the picture, the amino acids chain that comes out is basically a protein. Um, so this process is called protein synthesis. The ribosomes read the messenger RNA, which is like carrying the DNA code from the nucleus. So hold on, let me see if I can draw on this. Uh, okay, so think of this entire thing as a cell, and the nucleus is like right inside. So your DNA is like in here in form of chromosomes, 23 pairs of these. And the mRNA basically carries DNA from the nucleus into these ribosomes. I covered this last class, but these ribosomes are in the cytoplasm, which is like this like jelly-like fluid in the cell. So they're like randomly on the endoplasmic reticulum, which is kind of this like right here. So the ribosomes are on here. Sorry, this is a really bad drawing. So the messenger RNA carries the DNA into the ribosomes, and the ribosomes basically make a protein for the cell. So think of like this as the protein. Okay. Next we have proteins. This is exactly what I was talking about. So they're responsible for nearly every single task of cellular life. Some of these tasks might include cell shape, inner organization, product manufacture and waste cleanup. So basically, like what the cell doesn't need anymore, it trashes it or recycles it, and routine maintenance. So like daily your cells need to perform some actions like gaining energy, sometimes DNA replication to prepare for cell division. They can also receive a signal from outside the cell and mobilize an intracellular response. So like basically being able to communicate with other cells. Um, an example I can think of right now would be contact inhibition. So, this is an interesting thing that human cells do is that when there's multiple cells next to each other, that your cell can, one of the cells can detect that, oh, I'm so close to a cell, I shouldn't grow anymore. So it stops growing. So it's like they receive a signal from outside the cell, and the intracellular response would be to like stop growing. The cell just either stop growing or stop dividing. So they're like, oh, the space is completely full. I shouldn't divide it anymore. So yeah. Um, Next we have, I should probably be in presentation mode for this. Oops. Hold on, wait a sec. My PowerPoint just stopped. Let's just like wait for like 2 minutes, hope for this to like come back again. All right, okay. The cell wall. So this is basically outside of the cell. Um, so the cell is like that, and this like purple outline would be the cell wall. So it like directs like what's coming in or out of the cell. It's like the first layer of protection against infection and mechanical stress. Mechanical stress is basically like the physical stress like around the cell. Um, Support, shape, and protect the cell. Because right inside the cell is like a cytoplasm. It's like this like jelly-like fluid. So it can't like protect all the organelles inside of it. So it needs like a cell wall, like thick cell wall to like protect the cell. Um, and I want to go over like animal cells, like human cells. They have So animal cells, they only have one of these like walls, but plant cells, since they don't have bones for extra protection, they have a cell wall and a cell membrane. So just know that. So whatever I'm going to be covering today is based on human cells and animal cells. Yeah. Okay, the endoplasmic reticulum. So there are two types, a smooth endoplasmic reticulum and a rough endoplasmic reticulum. So the rough endoplasmic reticulum, is the one that contains ribosomes, and the ribosomes are like the chefs of the cell. Like I said earlier, they make proteins from the instruction manual, the DNA, and the smooth endoplasmic reticulum is just like there. There's like more complicated functions, but let's focus more on the rough endoplasmic reticulum. So this entire area called the endoplasmic reticulum is like surrounding the nucleus. So it's a big area for cellular reactions like protein synthesis and translation to occur. Um, it's a big place, so there's like a lot of stuff going on here. Calcium storage, lipid metabolism. You don't have to know exactly what these are, but just as names. We will be covering some of these processes, like protein synthesis and transcription translation in our later classes. Transport of carbohydrates and proteins to other organelles. So I'll be going over the Golgi apparatus next, and this kind of ties into that. Um, let's see. So the Golgi apparatus. So whenever the ribosome makes proteins, they need to be packaged properly. So the Golgi apparatus is like kind of like near to the endoplasmic reticulum because endoplasmic reticulum is where the ribosomes are, and that's where the proteins are made. So whenever the proteins are made, they go to the Golgi apparatus for furthering processing of proteins before they can go out to the rest of the cell, before they can go out to like the organelles and before anything can happen. So there's like extra packaging, ensuring that nothing's wrong with the proteins, stuff like that. Okay, this is probably the most commonly known organelle, mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. So this basically, from the food we eat, we don't get the direct, like the energy we use isn't directly just from food. So energy we get from food is called glucose, which is like this type of sugar. And our body isn't really readily able to use that yet. So the mitochondria transforms this glucose into cellular ATP, and ATP is a short form for this fancy word, um, adenosine triphosphate. So this is the type of energy that our body can use. Um, Mitochondria is also responsible for apoptosis, which is basically when your cell has damaged DNA and it doesn't want it to replicate anymore, so it kills it right away. Like the cell just dies. So here. So you can imagine a cell, sorry. Nucleus would be like over here, and then the DNA is over here, but the DNA is like damaged. So draw here. This is damaged DNA. And the mitochondria basically says that this is the mitochondria. So it's basically sensing that there is DNA damage in that cell. So the mitochondria is like instead of the cell replicating and spreading the DNA damage into multiple cells, because if the cell continues replicating, it's gonna have other cells with damaged DNA. Like and DNA damage is just gonna spread around the entire body. So the mitochondria is like, I'm just gonna kill the cell right away, so it cannot replicate, cannot grow, nothing else can happen. So this is a mechanism your body uses to prevent cancer. So when the mitochondria doesn't perform apoptosis to damage DNA cells, that damaged DNA continues replicating, and that's how cancers are formed sometimes. Okay, lysosomes. So think of lysosomes as like the trash bags of the cell. So they take materials that the cell doesn't use anymore and they recycle it or either like trash it. So it's like the digestive system of the cell. So like our digestive system inside a human body basically takes our food, recycles it, excretes the waste outside. Um, these lysosomes are also responsible for the removal of dead cells. So they're like the like recycling centers. So whatever proteins are not used, whatever cell organelles are not used, they take it, they recycle it, or they degrade it. So the vacuole. So this vacuole is in both animal and plant cells. So picture shows a vacuole in a plant cell. So the vacuoles in plant cells are very big, so they act like storage for plant cells, but in animal cells they are relatively small compared to the rest of the organelles. Um, they take in waste products, get rid of waste products. They're, you can kind of think of them as lysosomes, but that's the only function of them. So they're like specialized. They only do that. But lysosomes, they do so much more than just this. The cytoplasm. So basically most of your cell is made like of cytoplasm. So you can think of the cell as this like little yellow circle here. The cytoplasm is this like jelly-like fluid right inside the cell, and it's where cell reactions happen. It's also responsible for the transportation of proteins and nutrients. So it's like the medium for everything to happen. Like all the organelles are inside the cytoplasm, all the proteins are inside the cytoplasm. Everything happens in the cytoplasm. So it stores macromolecules. It basically protects the cell. Because imagine a cell with just the organelles just like stacked on top of each other. Like if there's any mechanical stress outside the cell, it can like crush it or ruin the cell. Next is peroxisomes. So peroxisomes are one of the more complicated organelles to understand. So just simplified, two of the main things they do is detoxification and lipid metabolism. So detoxification, just taking harmful things and getting rid of them. That's all you need to know for peroxisomes for now. Centrioles. So centrioles are like these like little star-shaped things that are like outside the nucleus. So I will draw a picture for you here. So again, cell is the nucleus inside the cell, and the centrioles are kind of these like star-shaped, like spindle fibers kind of outside. So they are like, think of them as like North and South Pole. They organize microtubules, which is like in the cell wall. There's like microtubules, which are like extra protection for the cell. So they organize them. So they're kind of like location markers for everything to happen. Like we as humans like say that things happen because of the North Pole, magnetism, North Pole, South Pole. So they're kind of like location markers for everything to be like located, structured, how everything happens. During mitosis, which is like a cell division process, they pull apart these chromosomes, which is again inside the nucleus. So they pull on these chromosomes and they have these chromosomes of like two different sides of the cell. And so the cell can like break apart into two different cells. So the nucleus like breaks apart like this. That's how mitosis kind of occurs. So they become into two different cells here. Sorry, this is a really bad drawing. More on this in our mitosis lesson. But for now, this is like a rough introduction to mitosis. Okay, organelles under a microscope. So this is like a short thing I just want to add in. So this is how the nucleus looks under the microscope. So the nucleus has this like little nucleus inside the nucleus called a nucleolus, which is the darkened um piece you can see here. This like entire circle is the nucleus. You can see the different, you can't really see the chromosomes. I have a better picture for that towards the end. But yeah, this is where all your DNA is stored. Chromosomes, you can see the separate chromosomes. And I was talking about the chromosomes like splitting apart to two different sides of the cell, the north and south pole kind of. So the centrioles would kind of be, let me see if I can show this. The centrioles would kind of be like towards these areas. They're like pulling on these chromosomes, separating them to two different sides of the cell. And this only happens during mitosis. So your cell, like normal cells, are only 10% of the time in mitosis, which is like this like place where they know they're gonna be dividing into two different cells. Um, they're only in this kind of phase 10% of the time. 90% of the time they're just doing their function, supporting the body and stuff like that. Okay. The ribosomes. So you can basically imagine how small these ribosomes are because this is a very, very, very magnified view of the ribosomes. So these like little bumps are the ribosomes. So the making centers of proteins and everything. And this picture is, I'm going to take a good guess. It's probably on the rough endoplasmic reticulum. This is the rough endoplasmic reticulum is called rough because of these like tiny bumpy structures on top of them called ribosomes. But the smooth endoplasmic reticulum does not have ribosomes. Okay, proteins. So this is one of the first pictures we have of official proteins. So I don't know what these proteins are for, but the first one is hemoglobin, which you should probably know. Hemoglobin comes on top of like red blood cells, and red blood cells are like responsible for gas exchanges. So think of red blood cell as like they're kind of like really flat, and they have this hemoglobin in them. It's kind of this like whole mess, a jumble of hemoglobin, and they either carry carbon dioxide back and forth from cells to the heart, or they carry oxygen. So they're kind of responsible for the gas exchange. I don't know why it's not letting me draw, but yeah. So this is a picture of different types of proteins. This is a really good picture for multiple organelles. So these pink borders you can see outside are the cell walls, and this picture is in an onion root tip. Um, these pink outlines the cell wall. You can see the nucleus and the nucleolus clearly inside the cell. Whatever the rest of the cell is the cytoplasm. Um, so this entire thing is a cytoplasm, and the nucleus is this one, this circle, nucleolus, this one, and the pink border that you can see is the cell wall right over here. I'm drawing on my computer, so every drawing looks a bit messy. I'm sorry. This is the endoplasmic reticulum. You can like kind of see like these like little lines being structured throughout. Some of it is smooth endoplasmic reticulum, which again does not contain ribosomes, the making centers of proteins, and some of them are rough endoplasmic reticulums, which do have ribosomes. So here's that. There's the Golgi apparatus, the yellow one you see. It's like the packaging centers of all the proteins created by the ribosomes. So before the proteins can be sent out to different organelles in a cell, they go to the Golgi apparatus for extra packaging, extra protection, just like an extra step in protein synthesis. This is the mitochondria, so this U-shaped structure that you see here. Um, Power of the cell. So takes in glucose, ATP comes out, which the cell can readily use for all of its cellular functions. This is kind of the mitochondria here. And all of these are real pictures taken from a microscope. Okay, next we have lysosomes. So these like little blobs you see are lysosomes. So they take in old material that the cell doesn't need anymore, recycles or degrades it. I'm going to be going a little fast because we do have a Kahoot at the end I would like to go over. This is a vacuole, and this is in a animal cell. So, just to make it a bit clear here, the vacuole is, let me outline it. The vacuole is like this thing right over here. So this is extra storage for the animal cell. It's kind of, think of it as like an air blob inside a cell. So whenever the cell needs to like store more of something, it just has it there. It also does recycle proteins and whatever the cell doesn't need anymore. Lysosomes, but specialized. And I'll be going over what specialized means in just a second because we are going over that today. Um, I don't know why this. Okay. Next is cytoplasm, which is like jelly-like fluid. So these green dots are actually part of a plant cell. They are called chloroplasts. Um, Basically give plant the green color that they have. But this jelly-like fluid, other than these green dots you can see, is the cytoplasm. So it's kind of this entire thing. There you go. Peroxisomes, again, they're responsible for detoxification and lipid metabolism. So they're kind of these like little black blobs you see right over here. So they're very tiny compared to other organelles. So lysosomes are way bigger. Um, yeah, think of them as like tiny dots in the cell, but they are really important. Centrioles, you can see this kind of like star-shaped thing. So they're on like opposite sides of the nucleus. Um, so so I would guess the nucleus would somewhere. This is a very confusing picture, but the centrioles would somewhere they would be like here, like first centriole, second centriole, and they're kind of like responsible for pulling things together, like the cell structure of it, like where things are placed and everything. They don't really have much of a function, but it's like a location marker. Okay, this is the most exciting thing. Um, so the difference of organelles in specialized cells. So we have a lot of different cells in our body. Um, think of us like muscle cells, fat cells, bone cells, blood cells, nervous cells. Um, so a lot of different types of cells. But how do they become different with different organelles? Like a nervous cell has axons, dendrites, different structures made just for the function of these type of cells. Um, a red blood cell. So the interesting things about blood cell is the blood cell does not have a nucleus because it has to carry so much hemoglobin to carry the oxygen from the heart to the other cells that it doesn't have space for a nucleus. So the red blood cell is like basically I'm gonna ditch this nucleus and carry more hemoglobin instead. So the red blood cell doesn't have many organelles. So that's only for the red blood cell though. The other cells do have nucleus. Um, so you can see they look different, like they're structured differently. So all cells come from something called stem cells. So a stem cell is kind of this like blank slate for different cells. So we come from a stem cell. So when okay, this is so let's say this is a sperm cell and this is an egg cell. They combine together to form what's called a zygote. So this entire thing is zygote. We come from this one cell. The zygote is actually a stem cell. So stem cell blank slate, like it doesn't have any other function. It's just there. So they go through a process called differentiation, which takes these stem cells and basically like tells them, oh, you're gonna be this type of cell. You're gonna be a heart cell. So I'm gonna give you this heart cell function. So that means you're gonna have organelles, the structure, everything in particular for a heart cell. So not every cell has the same size organelles, the same size nucleus, but all cells do have those 23 pairs of chromosomes in their DNA. Um, so stem cells get differentiated to become specialized cells. So every single cell in your body right now, it comes from a stem cell. So specialized cells each have their own functions and own organelles to perform that function. So this is really important because An example would be like a liver transplant, not a transplant, like liver regrowth. So the liver has a lot of stem cells. So as you can guess, imagine if someone's liver is damaged. So in surgery, you take off that damaged part. So if I draw this, it's gonna be way better. Um, Let me see. Think of this whole thing as your liver, and say that this part is damaged. And when you do surgery, you cut off some of it, right? This is all you have left of your liver now. Um, So the liver has a lot of stem cells. So these stem cells differentiate into liver cells and they help the person regrow their entire liver back. No, it's not going to be the same, but it helps you regrow that back. And think of as like you chopped as a person like chopped their finger off. They're never going to get that entire finger back, but they are going to get like the tissue on top of the wound back. So everything depends on stem cells. Okay. So another special thing I would like to talk about is leukocytes. So leukocytes are white blood cells in your body. So they're like the first thing your immune system responds to. So if something comes into your body, like a microbe or a pathogen, first of all, your skin is the first layer of protection, but if it does penetrate through your skin, leukocytes are the second kind of form of protection. Um, Leukocytes are specialized to have an abundance of lysosomes and phagosomes. So these two organelles combined basically eat up the pathogen. So this is going to be a really cool thing. Let me see. So think of this kind of shape as your white blood cell. And say it comes in contact with a pathogen. So that would be this pink little dot over here. So cell basically leukocytes they kind of eat up this pathogen. So what the cell is now gonna do is the cell is gonna extend here. The cell is kind of like formed like this. This is the new shape of the cell. Leukocytes change shape very quickly. And basically they do so until the entire microbe is surrounded. And the lysosomes inside, which are these blue dots that I'm going to be drawing, lysosomes and phagosomes, basically digest this microbe into themselves. So lysosomes are kind of the recycling centers, right? They take in old stuff, they like recycle it or get rid of it. So the lysosomes eat up this microbe and the microbe is gone now. But they only do so for some of these diseases. That's how your cold goes away. That's how virus infections sometimes go away in your body. So this process, which the leukocytes do to surround the microbe, is called phagocytosis. So think of phagocytosis as like eating up a microbe. The term phago means eating, in like medical terminology. So that's how I like to remember it. Okay, now we do have a Kahoot. You can type in the chat if you wanna do the Kahoot. It's just about cell function and cell organelles. So I am gonna so for the people that are in the meeting right now, um we can do the Kahoot or I can like review answers for it maybe. Okay, I'm gonna put on Kahoot. Okay, you guys can join the meeting. Sorry, the Kahoot now. And since there are only a few people, I'm just gonna run it like a question and answer. So join the Kahoot and yeah, I'm also gonna put the code in the chat. Or I can join the Kahoot and from my personal device and go through the question and answers with you because they do have like good questions. So we're just gonna do that for now. Let me see. Or you know what? I'm gonna post this in the classroom channel and you guys can go through it by yourselves. And if you have any questions, you can type it into the Google Classroom and I'll answer to you as soon as I can. The, these are some links for other resources for this topic. Oh, you're still okay. We can go back to the Kahoot. Sorry. Okay. I'm gonna start a new one then. I'm sorry, I didn't know it was loading. Alright, I'm gonna keep the Kahoot unlocked and we can just go through the questions. Okay. So the code's gonna be at the bottom of the screen and we can go through that. I'm gonna be answering randomly. I'm on my phone right now. Um, okay. So the answer to this is the cell wall and the chloroplast because chloroplast is only needed when the plant has to do photosynthesis. So chloroplasts are only in plant cells because we don't need to do photosynthesis because we eat food. And then cell wall, um, the plant has a cell wall for extra protection for every single cell because they don't have bones like us for that extra protection and support. And whoever said they need the code is at the bottom of the screen, so feel free to join whenever you want. So this is the mitochondria. Um, this takes in glucose and provides ATP, which is like readily usable energy for the cell. All right. Okay. So I'm gonna give like 10 seconds for every question because we do need to kind of hurry up. So this is the nucleus, and the nucleus is like the powerhouse, not the powerhouse. The nucleus is like the center control center of the cell. Contains all your DNA in the form of chromosomes, which are these 23 pairs. Um, and it contains everything you need for the DNA to divide, everything. So the answer would not be cytoplasm. Is the cytoplasm is kind of not like an organelle. It's just the thing that's in the cell. The cytoplasm is not an organelle. And the key thing about this question is it's in plants only. Yes, good job. So, the plant's cells have a cell wall and a cell membrane. Um, I'm gonna see if I can draw on a Kahoot screen. Um, so the plant cells, they have the cell membrane, and on top of that, they have a cell wall for extra protection. And the cell wall is kind of like boxy. But animal cells, on the other hand, they only have this cell membrane. So, again, this question says clear substance, not an organelle. So that's kind of the main thing for this question. And the answer would be cytoplasm. Good job. This question is kind of phrased in a very weird way, but yeah. Yes, it is a cell membrane, which is like the outer covering of the cell, which provides extra protection for every single cell to not get damaged by mechanical stress or things that's outside the cell. Yes, the answer is vacuoles. And mind you that animal cells have a very small vacuole compared to the plant cells. Like almost half of every plant cell is a vacuole for storage. It's kind of like this big air bubble. I think the color gives it all away. Yes, the green color comes from the chloroplast, just like the coloring agent that has chlorophylls in it, which provide coloring for a plant cell. Yes, the powerhouse of the cell. Mitochondria, which has this like long tube-like shape with little folds inside of it. Um, it converts glucose into ATP. So the chloroplast has I'm gonna draw this one. So think of this as a chloroplast, and the chloroplast has these like little chlorophylls inside of it. They're like stacked on top of each other, one by one, and that's what provides the green coloring. So if on like a competition or a test, if you're asked what gives the green coloring for a plant cell, say chlorophyll, because chloroplast is basically the photosynthesis like center. The chlorophyll can be like a more specific answer for this kind of question. And this is kind of last class. I think some of you did not like come to last class, but you can kind of guess. Yeah. All these three things are proposed by the people that I went um on the earlier slides for the meeting two. You can go back to the slide. Why every PowerPoint that I go through is posted on the Google Classroom that we have. Yeah, so this one was kind of a hard one, but plant cells usually in models they're green because of the chlorophyll. So make sure to look out for that.
Yeah, I got it from the color.
Yeah, good job. Alveoli, so the alveoli are like part of the lungs. It's like involved in the gas exchange that happens with red blood cells. It's like I would say it's a part of the body. It's not really an organelle in a cell. Good job. So last question. I did not go over this, so this is kind of like an extra question that I put in here. So the nuclear envelope, um, I feel like a thing that would give this question away is all organelles. The cell membrane in itself is an organelle. So that the cellulite skin, I am not sure what that is, but the answer is the nuclear envelope. It's like an think of it as like an envelope, and the letter you put in it is like the entirety of the cell, including the organelles, cytoplasm, everything. All right, good job. And
Thanks.
I'll be posting, yeah, you're welcome. I'll be posting all the links for the PowerPoint and the Kahoot and a few other resources um that you can use to go over the specific cell organelle functions and like look more in depth because this was a very um brief introduction to everything. So yeah, next class we will be switching over to something else. This is kind of like the ending of looking at specific cells for now. So yeah, thank you for attending. Next class will be meeting 4, and I'll be posting the link for that next week, which should be April 15th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.